Hey, it's Emma Romano here, founder of the Thrive and Life Foundation, self-healing coach, and the midwife to your personal alchemy.
I am Kelly Bowen, founder of the Heaven Within Foundation, CEO of Lifestyle Finance Australia, finance expert, life and business coach.
And you are listening to Inspired Conversations,
where we talk about the things that really matter. Yes, we go there.
We share together what's exciting us, inspiring us, and having the most profound impact on our lives and our clients' lives. And we do this to elevate and inspire you.
We cover it all from life, body, love, relationships, trauma healing, addictions, business, money, and all things woo-woo.
So sit back, relax,
and get ready to be inspired and laugh the fuck out loud. Welcome everybody to Inspired Conversations. It is just me today, Kelly Bowen, as Em is away traveling around Egypt, having the most phenomenal time. I can't wait to see and hear all of the stories that she comes back with. It just looks like every day is getting better and better. So instead of us going on break, because we didn't get to record extra sessions before she left, I thought that I would bring on some of my incredible friends that are also leading experts and specialists in the area of trauma healing, because I know that's a conversation you really like with it when Em and I delve into. So today I've got one of my bestest friends with me, Pia Kynoch, who is an absolute specialist when it comes to skin, gut health, trauma healing. She's recently just dropped in stuff to me about fascia, which is another area I'm so excited on, which I think I'll have it back for another episode to talk about that because we got very excited. However, today what we're going to be talking about is how your digestive system is intrinsically linked with your nervous system, and they go hand in hand. And if your digestive system isn't functioning with a happy, healthy microbiome, then even though, as Pia said earlier, you might be doing all the work, yet you're not getting the results because your gut health isn't in alignment with your healing. So I'm going to let Pia kind of take over and tell us a little bit more about that, because what she was sharing with me before we jumped on was just mind-blowing. And every time she talks, I always learn so much. And it's just a joy to have you on the show, Pia. Welcome.
Yay. Oh, I feel very delighted to be here and to share with your beautiful audience. And yeah, we do have so many ways that we can unpack this conversation, because part of my beliefs as a practitioner, and with all the knowledge that I've gained from so many different masters from around the world, we are an intrinsic mix of spiritual, mental, emotional, and physical, and you cannot separate one or the other. So if there's things happening in our physiology, there's definitely things happening in our psychology, and that interrelationship cannot be pulled apart and separated, even though that's what science loves to do, is to look at the very reductionist, minimalist pathways. And that's something that I am very good at doing. I read a lot of scientific journals. However, I always like to keep a big, broader perspective, because I'm all about the microcosm and the macrocosm. I like to be able to zoom in, and then I like to be able to zoom out, because our body is an ecosystem, and to have a thriving ecosystem, there's all the different communities that are happening. And if you think about a rainforest as an ecosystem, there's a very dark, dense forest floor. You know, that's where all the leaves and the branches go to be broken down. And then there's another layer, and then there's a higher layer, and there's a very top canopy layer that gets the most amount of sun. And all of these communities support each other. They all do vastly different things. Our human body is no different. And all of the different cells and tissues and organ systems that make us up are also no different. And then here we are living, both of us are sitting in our own dwelling right now. It's in our own community, we're in our own state, we're in our own country, we're in our own world. There's all ecosystems at all different levels. And so the interplay between all of those energetics and frequencies is manifesting in us all the time, married with our own beliefs and our own stress response. And so literally the way that we're digesting our life obviously makes a really big difference to how well our cells can grow, thrive, develop. Like how well can my trees in my ecosystem grow, basically? Like, are the leaves reaching up to the sun, or are they decomposing too fast and falling down? And so this is where the understanding of what our digestive processes are doing, like every single compartment of our digestive system has its own specialized, unique role, its own specialized, unique microbiome. And I'll just mention that actually our microbial cells do outnumber our human cells about 3 to 1. So
Yeah.
they used to believe it was 10 to 1, but the research shows that it's much closer to almost a 1-to-1 ratio. But we are actually more microbial than we are, in inverted commas, human.
And if you're wondering and for those of our listeners that are like, what's a microbiome? They're the little bugs that live inside of us that make sure that we function. Without them, we die. And when they become imbalanced, we become sick. So this conversation is really going to sort of, I guess, open some doorways into what really is going on inside of you. Because as Pia was saying, like with a rainforest, there's so many micro and macro environments happening at once. We're exactly the same. And most of our life force is coming from other living organisms within us. And when that's off, it just messes with everything, not just our nervous system, it's our energy, it's our sleep, it's our mental clarity, it's our inspiration, it's our ability to hold our light, it's our connection to our purpose. So this is like, I guess we're taking for our listeners, this is a really new kind of like deep dive into inside themselves, because now we're going to be talking like about how do we keep these parts of ourselves healthy? How do we even know? Yeah, how do we even know if like something like this might be off balance, or if it is affecting our nervous system, or if it is affecting how we're healing? Like what might be some of the things that
Such a fantastic question. And honestly, the answer is a myriad of seemingly small, insignificant things to quite large things. So anywhere from like brain fog, fatigue, having trouble with decision-making processes, having a little bit of bloating after every meal, a little bit of indigestion, maybe a little bit of pain, not having bowel motions every single day, minimum twice a day. That's what I'm looking for from my naturopathic lens. If you're not eliminating very well every day, there's definitely something going on in your system. And most people, I'll finish other signs and symptoms in a minute, but a lot of people have been living with chronic constipation their whole lives since childhood and have no idea that that's dysregulated. Yeah. And so that in itself can be really challenging. Or if you've got bowel motions that are moving way too fast, like if you can't even hang on to nutrients, and maybe you're going 6 to 7 times a day and they're quite runny and not really well formed, that's also a sign that there's, a lot happening in your microbiome and your digestive system that's not supporting you. It could be that you have any number of disorders or diseases that are related to inflammation. So you could have skin manifestations of any type. Like it could be acne, it could be perioral dermatitis, it could be alopecia, and other hair conditions as well. And then you can move all the way into manifestations of autoimmune disorders. And there is not a disease or disorder that I have researched where our nervous system and our gut system don't have an interrelationship with what is manifesting in that person.
It's really interesting, that one, because often you see with chronic nervous system dysregulation, there's often leaky gut, or there's some kind of irritable bowel syndrome, or there is, if like on the far end of that, when the nervous system has been in chronic fight, flight, freeze, that a lot of the time those autoimmune disorders are starting to kick in. Like I still remember back in 2015 when I first hit adrenal burnout, and I didn't connect the dots that there was anything wrong with my nervous system. I just thought that I'd been burning the candle in the middle at both ends, and because of that, my adrenals weren't working properly. And because of that, because of all the adrenaline that kept getting shot into my gut system, it killed off all the gut bacteria, so I wasn't absorbing my normal nutrients, which meant that I was getting leaky gut because the bacteria, isn't it candida that attaches to the wall of the
Well, there's a lot more going on than that. I mean, if you look at just the bracing patterns, if you're born into a more of a survival-based instinct pattern, like if you don't have a secure, healthy attachment, when you're little, you do have bracing patterns through your shoulders and your hips, particularly, that are tight all the time. So your psoas tightens up, your fascia tightens up. It really changes your vagal nerve function and your vagal nerve communication. So your vagal nerve being the longest of your 12 cranial nerves that literally extends to your entire midsection. It doesn't not touch anything, basically. And so the communication that's happening between the front of your body and the communication that's happening in your brain can be really misaligned, literally from the time in the womb, your birth experience, your childhood story. And that gut misalignment, that miscommunication could have been firing from that time. You add in on top of that some specific nutrient deficiencies, which are really common in survival-based patterns, like zinc deficiencies, vitamin D deficiencies, omega deficiencies. And there's others, or methylation-based issues, which are more related to B12 and B6 and folate and, other things. But those nutrient deficiencies combined with the modulation of the way that the nervous system is talking to the gut the whole time changes things like digestive secretions, hormonal output, like normal signaling to let your body know that, oh yeah, we should be hungry now. Like, let's stop and eat. Like, let's re-nourish ourselves. Let's nurture ourselves. A lot of those signals are just sideswiped. Yeah, and people either aren't very hungry or they're hungry a lot and eating on the run. And everyone will have a slightly different manifestation of that. But when we have changes in our gut function and digestive secretions and hormonal secretions, we will always have changes in our microbiome. And like, the populations of our microbiome are diverse and vast, like from skin to within. Every compartment of our body has some type of microbiome. So they can either support our system, they can all be working to harmonize with us like a great ecosystem. They can help produce nutrients for us. They help metabolize byproducts for us. They can help even produce neurotransmitters. They can do so many different things to support our body system. But when different populations get the opportunity to grow and flourish that aren't as supportive of our system, they might also produce neurotransmitters that are a hell of a lot more adrenaline. Like, that can impact then our stress hormone, fight and flight response over and over again. They might steal nutrients away from us. They change the pH of different compartments of our digestive system, which makes it almost impossible to get the great breakdown of food to get nutrients into our system. So they do a lot of things to create disarray that serves them and certainly doesn't serve us. And you add, like weeks and months and years of that process, and all of a sudden, as an adult, you're like, oh my God, I've got a chronic disease now, or a disorder. Like, how did this happen? And it just happened very, very gradually over time, because lots of body signs and signals just weren't picked up, and our society normalizes so much of the way that we feel pretty crappy most of the time.
They do, don't they? Take a pill for this, a pill for that. You've got heartburn. That's not a problem. Instead of stop eating and do something about it, just take an antacid for it. There's so much where we just mask the symptoms, but we're also like, we live in an urgency culture. We live in a culture that's like, soldier on, suck it up. And this is all like, completely goes against what we're actually needing. Like, if we have experienced trauma, we are experiencing nervous system dysregulation, if we are starting to touch into some of these, like, not even as far as chronic symptoms, but just noticing things are changing within our body, not for the better. Like, as you're saying, it might be mind fog, lack of energy, feeling down, like mood swings, that kind of stuff. Hormonal swings, particularly with women when they're coming into their menstrual cycles. This kind of stuff, like, it's not normal, but it's being so normalized that we just think, oh, we'll live with it. But it really comes back down to like this nervous system gut health relationship. It's wild. And I remember when it first started for me, where like the gut health awareness started, was when I went through that adrenal fatigue burnout, and I got told it was like I'd been spending on a credit card that had 1,000% interest that had now come knocking on the door. And I don't know, like, if you ever spent on a credit card and then didn't have the money to pay it off, like, it starts costing you a lot of money. But when we're looking at our health is our main, like, without that, we're nothing. All the money in the world can't buy your health back. All the, like, it doesn't work like that. So if say our listeners have been, because they've been following us a lot with sort of like unwinding the nervous system, healing the trauma, if they were to start looking at this relationship between their gut and their nervous system, it's two questions. Where would they start? And can you talk to me a little bit more about what you were mentioning before we got on this call, about how we can still, because even though we might be doing the right things, trying to come out of freeze patterns, but if our gut health isn't aligned with it, we will still stay in these freeze patterns and still look like we're functioning kind of normally, except our internal organs are still stuck in time. Can you talk to me a little bit more about that? Because that was...
Yeah, great. Yeah, actually, I might just bring in the polyvagal a little bit here, the polyvagal theory, that Stephen Porges brought out in the 70s as a way to understand our nervous system. And so the ventral vagal response is like the front part of our vagal nerve communicating in a way that helps us feel vital, curious, alive, alert, engaged, like here I am, here you are, let's connect. Like that's where humans thrive. Like we thrive on connection, and that connection is internal to us as well. Like we're aware of ourselves. We have a sense of agency and empowerment. And it's like, I'm here in my body. How many people do you know have not felt like that for huge proportions of their life? Like most people. I was one of those people.
Me too. I didn't even know I wasn't in my body until I got placed in my body, and I was like, holy shit.
Yeah. Yeah. And so the dorsal vagal response is like the opposite of that. It's like more of our disengaged, it's an automatic response of our body where it's like, we do not have enough resources for this. We now have to move into feelings of isolation, despair, like automatic obedience. Like I can follow the schedule of my timetable, but I've got nothing else more than that. And the other flip side of that is being able to move into sympathetic nervous system to get shit done. And a lot of people might have, like they might rely on coffee or alcohol or cigarettes or exercise or deadlines or other things to force a response out of the functional freeze. It's like, I have to get this done. You have to make adrenaline for me. We have to go. And so the body just usually swings from sympathetic to functional freeze, sympathetic or to full freeze. It depends on what spectrum people are living at.
Yeah, but that's really when you see the ones that like they go a million miles an hour and then they crash, then they go a million miles an hour and then they crash for a week, and like, why can't I get out of this cycle? That's why.
Yeah. And it's, if you think about, so as soon as any of us have an inkling of a threat response, it's usually coming through one of our senses before we're actually fully engaged with it. So at that point, you know, whether it's a sound that we heard on the streets, like over there, and we're not too sure what it is, if we don't actually give our body an opportunity to navigate that threat response in its initial stages, it will move all the way into a full-on stress hormone response. And that's where that orienting to your environment is really, really important. And knowing what your senses are most activated to, it's something that, I mean, we could talk about that for a whole episode as well. Like just like it is an opportunity to create an awareness with your own mind-body system when there's a feeling of uncomfortability. And if you don't address it in its initial stages, that adrenaline response ramps up, and then it changes the way that you can engage in the world. But basically, you're sitting there with the adrenaline response with your foot on the accelerator. Then when the cortisol comes out, you are revving and you're holding, and you take off from that line and you're going full speed ahead. You're going at the clackers. And then all of a sudden you ran out of petrol. And then it's like, oh, I've got to go to the mechanics. I've got to, go to the petrol station. I've got to fill up my car again. I've got I've chewed the tires off because I was turning corners way too fast. Like there's all of these things that you have to repair in your car system. Yeah. Because you've either just been sitting at the lights revving the hell out of it, and then you've just been in full go mode, and then it's falling apart mode. And that's the common cycle of life. But if you think about how much has gone into that wear and tear, and the longer that you've been in that cycle, you can understand that the body will need to keep you in functional freeze or full freeze response a lot more, because it's choosing that when you do not have enough resources to even flip back into sympathetic. And then to move into ventral vagal is like so far beyond what your body's resources are capable of. It's just not available really to it. And so to wind that back, there needs to be a recognition of what your unique body system needs. I mean, I can give a general overview, but at the end of the day, after looking after so many clients, one-on-one, every single person needs a slightly different recipe, because you have a unique body. Even though your anatomy and physiology, you can read a textbook and be like, yes, I have a brain. Yes, I have a heart. Yes, I have lungs. Yes, I have a digestive system. Like I've got all the 11 body systems, but you also have your energy and your frequency. You also have your individual microbiome and your individual fascia that's lived through your life experiences. And so you've got to have an understanding of what's going on within all of those systems, and then be able to listen to which nutrients would your body be needing the most of right now. And this is where the detective work with a practitioner who understands more about the biology of trauma and biochemical imbalances is really, really important. I don't like asking people to move into diagnostic testing, because it costs a fortune without having a full map of what's going on inside of the system. And then I need to prioritize what that could be. But as a general rule of thumb, to really allow the body to be able to muster energy things like B group vitamins, vitamin C, alpha lipoic acid, specific forms of coenzyme Q10. I really like the New Zealand brand called MitoQ. I literally make no money off them, but I think that they've got a fantastic supplement that they have got really amazing paper, like white paper research on, scientific literature on. And vitamin D is like, vitamin D deficiency is ubiquitous across the world. And the number of people, when I look at blood markers as just an initial like general testing, blood is just one window into you. There's so many other things that we can look at, but so many, I look after a lot of women and men, but women more than men. Iron deficiency, vitamin D deficiency, B12 deficiency, they're so common, and they will interfere with so much of what your DNA is able to do, what your mitochondria, your energy powerhouse part of your cells are able to do, the cell communication that's able to happen. If you're zinc deficient, you're not going to be able to make neurotransmitters or hormones very well. Same if you don't have enough B6 and again, a whole lot of other things. I'm just picking certain nutrients.
Which means you're going to feel really moody and all over the place.
Yeah, and in all of the practice that I've had and all the knowledge that I've gained, you do not have a hormonal imbalance. You have a nervous system imbalance. You have nervous system dysfunction. And when we get to talk about this in another episode, there's something going on in your fascia as well. Like it's both your fascia and your nervous system. And so that's what I like to wind that back to. And that's where we need to start unpacking a lot more about the bracing patterns that are in the body. And this is actually where I bring in some really simple things, like the way people breathe, the way people sit down and engage with their food, the way they chew changes so much. And we can break that down a little bit more soon, but also just self-massage through their abdomen and their diaphragm. Like massaging yourself every single morning and every single night is a way to communicate with your own body, feel into where are these different points of tension, perhaps even pain. Because if you're not aware of it, if I'm touching my own body and I have a complete unawareness of where it's tight and where it's contracted and where it's holding onto something, and basically I'm living my life in a way that's dismissive of that, I'm basically betraying and abandoning and rejecting my own body over and over and again, which just recreates beliefs that we installed in childhood that started off our survival response and our threat response and our functional freeze and our chronic freeze and sympathetic drive.
Yeah, and that's a huge one with the fawning, that self-abandonment and that self-betrayal. Because I know a lot of our listeners have really resonated when we've spoken about fawning and unplugging from that, and the people pleasing and how the self-abandonment and betrayal leads to the resentment. And this is like, but every time we do that to ourselves, there's this level of resentment that we're not just having towards other people, like where that real resentment is with ourselves. And this, I really like what you're saying, like what you've touched on about this self-massage was something that I focused on a lot at the beginning of the year. I'd never worked with my front body. I'd always gone and got a massage and like always about my back body, felt amazing. And it was a somatic practice. I can't remember where I got it from. It was like kneecap or something. Kneecap.
Oh yes, yeah, I've studied with them. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but what they did, they had this really awesome practice where you roll up a towel and you lie it across your stomach, and you lie on your side with the towel kind of like half on the front of your stomach and half on the back, and you roll around on this towel and you move it around. I had no idea how much freeze I held in my abdomen area, my digestive system. It was insane. And it was painful, and it was just a rolled up towel, but incredible. Like when you practice that daily, like as Pia was saying, a couple of times a day, you will notice how much pain just in general leaves your body, how much stuff starts moving through your body. Like how you were saying in the beginning, most people live in chronic constipation and they don't even realize. You start doing this with the towel, you start drinking more water, you will be surprised at what happens. And also be prepared too. Like we also store a lot of emotion here. And I'm about to, and I know this is the ball. I'm going to throw you this ball, Pia, because I know you're going to pick up and run with it. So we have a huge mid-fascia line, correct? And we store a lot through here. So over to you. What that means in terms of like when we start releasing it and massaging through our midsection.
And there's a couple. Well, we actually are pretty symmetrical with our fascia lines. Like it does conjoin in some sections, but there's actually a couple of big panels that run down our body to support both the sides moving and interlinking together. So our psoas has a lot to do with how tight we can be and what sort of bracing patterns we might be holding through our gut.
Yeah, which is so people, if you want to know what the psoas muscle is, it connects on the back of your spine and it comes down through the front of your hip and connects into the front of your leg.
And it's spelled P-S-O-A-S, psoas, so silent P. Yeah. If you want to look it up, and there's some great, free stretching routines you can do on YouTube. I also just wanted to wind it back just a minute for this self-massage as well. Going slow and steady and gentle will always get you much further than going harder and deeper. So I used to massage myself every single day, like with a hard roller, a hard ball, everything was hard. And initially, I mean, straight after that, I would always have some relief, which is why I went back to it literally as a daily practice. I was always confused because I was like, I literally do more for my body than every other person I've ever met. Like, I'm always massaging it. It's always so tight.
Every time she comes over to say, there's Pia in the morning on the foam rollers and the massage balls.
Yeah, I love it. And what I have learned since then is just going so much softer, so much slower. So I'm just like, basically that rule of meeting the slowest part of yourself, and then all of you is there and present. So being able to really slow down and connect with my body, because there is a lot of memory and a lot of different events and experiences and a lot of communication happening in the places that you're massaging. If you're going too hard and too fast, you could expect to bring up something that maybe you don't have enough regulatory capacity for. Maybe you don't have enough of that resilient stretch for. Like, you might take yourself over the edge, unwittingly, like not on purpose, just because you went in too hard, too fast. And so my advice there is just to go slower to find your sense of safety and comfortability before overstretching yourself, literally just using your own fingers, using soft massage techniques, using a little bit of knuckling, using, long stroking movements. And so that part of it is really important in terms of self-care. The other thing that I also just wanted to bring in, because we are one continuous network, if you look at our fascia, and all of our different nerves are obviously creating like the interaction with our food when we're eating. There's a really important stage of digestion called the cephalic stage of digestion, or the anticipatory stage of digestion. And this is missed by basically the whole of our society, because we're either, just eating on the run. Like, I've made my breakfast, I'm jumping in the car with the kids, I'm driving them, I'm eating my toast, or I'm eating on my lap while I'm at the laptop, or insert whatever thing, or I'm just going to stick this in the microwave, or stick this in the oven. And our engagement with our food and the contact time, the smelling time, the looking time, the hearing, all of our sensory engagement is often lowered in our modern society. So just bringing a little bit of that back by engaging with your food a lot more, by smelling it a little bit longer, by chewing for a minimum of 5 times more with your food, by giving yourself that opportunity to maybe have a little prayer or a blessing before you eat. It'll actually increase your digestive capacity, because you'll have a little bit more saliva in your mouth. Your saliva is like this amazing secretory fluid that does a lot more than just mix your food up. Like, it provides a whole lot of signals to lower digestive tract sections about telling them what to do and how much to do, and how much we break the food down in here will obviously decrease how hard our system has to work later on. So just a few little more steps when we're actually at the initial stage of digestion makes a huge difference later on down the track. And so for anyone with digestive issues and nervous system issues, just that little, like a 5-minute centering, grounding, I'm here with my food practice, can be life-changing. Yeah.
And especially too, because when, like, if we do have nervous system dysregulation, we're usually moving through life. Well, there's 2 ways. We're either not moving through life and we're in the collapse stage, or we're moving through life at rapid speed. And then when it comes to eating, there was something that like really made me get just how important what you shared was, like a few years ago. And it was understanding that there's a reason why when we go into our fight flight response, that all of our blood goes to our extremities, into our big moving muscles, because we either have to run away or we have to fight to protect ourselves. What's not usually talked about is what happens in the digestive system. Because in the digestive system, the brain goes, oh, fuck, we need to create a distraction. We need to, any energy that's being used on digestion right now, we need to get this out of the body so we can prioritize the survival of getting this organism out of whatever the way of this big danger thing is. So what happens is we either want to like run to the toilet and have diarrhea, like that have you ever noticed like your first morning coffee, bang, you want to poo straight after? The adrenaline hits the body, which tells the body, hey, we're ready to go do something. Get rid of anything that's like in the way of like having the energy in our extremities. So one, our digestive system, if we're in these heightened states, isn't getting the message of rest and digest. It's getting the message of get this out of me because I've got bigger priorities and my life's at threat. So
some other people might be like, I'm just going to suck everything up and hold it there and as I run.
Yeah,
everyone is very, very different with that.
Very different.
But with the one of the go
ahead.
Oh no, I just wanted to talk. I feel really inspired to talk about just how the emotions of our digestive system is so wrapped up in this. Like we've obviously got the physical engagement, but if you think about literally like how we're digesting and absorbing life goes straight in through our mouth first. And so you could even consider this to be like our most supportive structures. Like our teeth are related to all different meridian lines. Like in traditional Chinese medicine, we've got these different meridian systems, 12 different meridian systems. There's half on the yin side, half on the yang side. So feminine, masculine, and water, fire sort of concepts. And each of them have a specific time and a place, and they're related to physicality, but also emotionality. But if you think about also, our teeth could be like our family, our friends, our supportive structures. We've got the flow of life, like how well our saliva is flowing is a reflection of how well we're actually engaged in the present moment at any given time.
Wow.
So if you don't, yeah.
Wow.
So this is a really key point of like, how am I mushing down and how supported am I in my mushing down of what's coming in emotionally and physically, like through our food items. When it moves into our stomach's like a bag. It's holding those emotions, hopefully for a long enough time for more breakdown processes to occur. But our stomach's got other jobs on a physical nature. It has to be super, super acidic to kill any things that aren't meant to be in our system. It's like a really important part of our immune function. And so if our stomach, which is holding all of our emotions, is compromised, they're either going to move through our stomach too fast or too slow. They're going to ferment if they move too slow, or if they move too fast, they're not going to be broken down into the smallest components for the best processing and integration. Think about that with emotions and body work and how that interlinks. And then from the stomach, it's moving down into the small intestine. That's where a huge amount of nutrients are absorbed. And so if our small intestine, which has all of these different passageways, like its surface area is so huge. And so we're meant to have this huge surface area for as many different contact points of perspective of life as possible. This is where introspection, reflection, being able to view and perceive our life from all different facets is really important. The way that we educate ourselves, the way that we increase knowledge, not just of the external, but internal to us. What do I know about myself, my sensations, how I'm feeling, my perspective? Like what's my why, my what, my which, my how. And so that's more related to our small intestine. In our large intestine, it's getting ready to excrete and expel what we don't need anymore and to share that back with the earth for more growth. So it's not a waste product. It's actually allowing things to leave our system that we no longer need. And a whole lot of things could be happening in here that aren't helpful for a body system. We can have microbes that deconjugate estrogen from bile acids and make estrogen come back out into our system if that's not working well. Extra estrogen in our system promotes growth of things that maybe we don't want to grow, things like tumors, things like cancers, like cysts. Like there's a lot of things that excess estrogen can do in our system that's really not helpful for our system, and that's just one example. And so the passage of our digestion of life could be really slow and sticky and hard through this situation, and we might not want to let go. We're scared of letting go. It hurts to let go. I feel uncomfortable when I sit on the toilet. I don't want to be around, like I've got all these rules around letting go. Like I've got to be by myself. I've got to have the right scent. I've got to be the right time. Like there's a lot of different things that sometimes people pack into not being able to let go.
God, I've never thought about it like that. I just had so many different things of different people about weird things being like, holy shit, literally, holy shit.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. And do you know what? As a naturopath, it is holy shit. It is so holy. Like being able to view that everybody listening to this, I invite you to take the time to look at what comes out your other end. View it day to day. Notice what happens, like what has changed with what I've eaten, how I've eaten. How has this come out of me? Like, honestly, a perfect poo is what we should all be aiming for. And no one has really take the time to Google a perfect poo or to look at the Bristol stool chart. Like it's around about a number 4. You know, it needs to be like a pretty long, well-formed, like it's got edges to it.
It's not dried out.
It should be brown. It should be basically brown, not too stinky. It shouldn't be yellow or greasy or have mucus or blood or there is a perfect poo. And so if you know what you are looking for, then you can have a little bit more of an estimation of what might I need help with. Should I reach out to a practitioner at this point? Like, is there something going on in my system that's actually not creating a perfect poo, and what could that be? And so it is not just like the last hurrah, like there's a whole lot of information in what we're excreting as well. And of course, if we're not excreting properly through our bowels, we will through other places, our skin obviously being a big one, or like we'll be hyperventilating to try and get things out of our lungs, or we'll be sweating and our sweat will smell. Like, our liver and our kidneys have got to be working extra hard. That slows down detox processes and immune processes in a myriad of ways. And so this is where inflammation starts rising and growing, and all of a sudden you've got sore joints and my muscles are really tight. I've got TMJ issues. My vision's getting a little bit blurry. I'm not thinking like that. This is where it starts adding up.
Yeah, and it is. And then inflammation, again, like inflammation's the precursor to all diseases.
Absolutely.
Heal the diseases. It's one thing that I'm all like so present to, is just noticing when I'm feeling inflammation in my body and doing everything I can to really regulate that, because I know that's my body communicating with me on some level, whether I'm consciously aware of what's causing it or not, it's not happy. And whether it be mental, emotional, physical, environmental, whatever it is, if there's a prolonged stress, it leads to inflammation. And it's starting to come into a completely new relationship with not just how you think, how you feel, but also how the body's communicating. Because I've always said the body's always communicating with you. The question is, are you listening? Do you even know the language of the body to know what it's communicating? One of the things that I've really been focusing on, I guess, like the back half of this year, is my gut health, because I know that's like, because it goes hand in hand with the nervous system stuff. And I also know how much of a beating my gut health took when I was in those chronic stress states, and I was using the coping mechanisms of drugs, alcohol, coffee, cigarettes, all of the things which are they do not support healthy gut population. They're quite the opposite. So really bringing that in with a lot of the stuff that I've done, that I noticed just how much more flow and ease and movement there is in my body. And I know every time I go through like a big event, like if I've gone and done money work, or do work on my like spiritual self and holding more light codes, oh my God, do I feel it in my body for the next few weeks as that density is leaving, and like having to actually work through like, what does this new frequency mean for my body? How does it interact in my body? How do I need to support my body with the integration of it? Because every time that we move into an ascension phase, essentially we're holding more light, which means to hold more light we have to let go of density, and in letting go of density, this is where these little things show up. So I think
totally. I know we're going to talk about this again soon, but I just want to quickly add in that this is where our fascial network, which is holding light, it is a light communicator, and it's holding structured water as part of that. That's where our ability to touch ourselves and to allow a softness and a smoothness through all of our different tissues. It's a key point of nervous system regulation, and it will then in turn regulate our gut. It will regulate our cardiovascular system, our lymphatic system, like all of the different systems then start realigning to us being able to hold more light and having light communicate through our entire biofield in a much more harmonious way, because the structures of our body are in much more alignment. And so every time we do go through an identity shift, that level of self-care needs to adapt to like the truth of our body in that moment. And our body might be asking for different practices. It might be asking for breath or movement. And the most simple things that we can do is still, as always, to connect with the dawn and the dusk, to be bare feet on the earth as much as possible. The infrared radiation at dawn and dusk time is the most helpful for our fascial network, increasing our water consumption, because that is our blood and our lymph and our fascial network, and making sure that we've got enough protein in our diet. And our stomach has everything to do with our protein absorption and digestion. And so that's why if you're if you've got digestive issues, and they always, like, I look at the mouth first as a big part, a key part of what's going on in the other lower sections. But if your tummy hasn't been working well for a while, your ability to bring protein, which is the building block of your entire system, into your system is going to be hampered. And so this is where these extra layers of understanding are so helpful as we move through our journey.
Yeah, amazing. I think what we might do, being that we're starting to get into fascia, because I really want to have that conversation. I want to give it the whole, like, give it the space it deserves. And because for those of you, like, this is the first time you're hearing about fascia, honestly, Google it. It will blow your mind. Essentially what it is the connective tissue that our whole body structure is built upon. It connects everything, and the information travels through our fascia faster than our nervous system. Do you know the comparisons in, like, how much faster the information travels?
Yes, there was a study that it was like so I mean, we can have nervous system communication happening in the order of like way less, like the smallest components of milliseconds. But there was a study, and I can't remember the name of the scientist, but they were looking at acupuncture points and how quickly they were doing brain imaging scans to look at how quickly it landed in the brain, and it was faster than sensory input processing or other touch processing through the nervous system network. So
wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's incredible. Well, Pia, it's been an absolute, like, honor and a pleasure and joy. There was so much gold that you shared in that. And now I know that you've got, it's definitely one of those episodes you guys might want to listen to a few times, because there was lots of pieces in there. There was pieces around, like, different nutrients to support your gut system. There were pieces in there around, like, massage and how to bring some movement into the gut system. There was so much in there, like stuff around how to prepare to get ready to eat so that your digestive system's available. So definitely, like, this is one of those ones you're going to want to listen to a few times over, because there was so much gold. And I know, Pia, so if anybody's really felt inspired or called to explore their digestive health or their fascia health or their nervous system in a little bit more deeper awareness, and feel really called to work with Pia, now there's a couple of different ways they can work with you, isn't there?
Yes, absolutely. Yes. So I'm really happy to look after people in a one-on-one like client practitioner relationship, and really hone in on exactly what's going on in your life and in your body, and work out a plan and a map forward that's really going to serve you best for a well-optimized and thriving system.
Yes.
And I also have a couple of courses that if you really want to have a deeper awareness of what's going on, not just for your own self, but how to even interact with other humans on a deeper level. Like, it doesn't matter whether you're in business, whether you've built your own tribe. Like, honestly, the information that I've got in my nervous system course, Rewire Your Nervous System and Change Your Life, is just, it is so pertinent to how we help change the world. And I've put a lot of time and effort and thoughtfulness into every single episode. It's pre-recorded. It's a 24/7 access library, so you can watch it whenever it suits you to go through the episodes. There's somatic practices in there, so you can understand more about how your body is actually attuning to its internal and external environment and how you can support it, and loads of other information. And I'm also working on a holistic digestive intensive course, which will honestly incorporate my favorite things that I have learned over my lifetime thus far, related to physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, but particularly how, like, our nervous system and our fascia and our gut are all interacting for our health, and just bringing in so many different components to enlighten and empower people. And again, it really wouldn't matter what industry you're in, or whether it's for your own personal learning, those journeys are available to you.
Yeah, I think if you want to be like a healthy, happy, thriving, functioning human, this is the baseline stuff that you need to know. This is what we need to get taught in school, because this is what gives us longevity. This is what has us have happy, healthy, thriving lives. This is what has us live on purpose. This is what, like, activates our hearts. Like, this is how we take care of us, not a school system that was designed to put us into battery hands like the Industrial Revolution. We're so beyond that. That's not how we live. And now you said before, we jumped on there for the online nervous system course, you've got a special $50 off. Is that right?
Yes, for your listeners, absolutely.
Amazing. So if you want to be part of that, so that course is normally $333 with the special $50 off. That'll come down to $288. So that's, you've got over 8 hours of the online nervous system course magic in there, where we touch on different somatic, or Pia, not we, it's Pia's course, it's not ours.
Energetically, you're there with me.
But she's got so much gold in there. So it's an absolute bargain. The code for that is going to be one word, Inspired Conversations. There'll be links in this, whether it be on iTunes, Spotify, whether you follow us on Facebook or YouTube, there were links there where you can go straight to that course and you can put in that code. And yeah, this has been so much fun. I can't wait to have the next conversation about fascia. It's a totally new space for me too. I know you've been in it for a while, so I can't wait to hear what you've got to say about it. I'm sure my little brain's going to be going ding, 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 just like the listeners. So please, guys, we're not a paid show. We get as much exposure as you love, like us, and share us. So please share this around. Like this, what Pia has shared is one of the most important things that we can really understand if we want to come into that, as Pia coined this term, holistic thriving. So we love you. Thank you so much for listening, and see you on the next episode. Mwah!